Good afternoon, everyone. In today's video, I'd like to share one stock that stands out to me that still has pretty good structure for the most part, even using a weekly time frame chart, and that's Mattel. Now, Mattel has been on our radar for quite some time. The way I'll break down this video is starting first with the weekly time frame chart, then we'll move down to the daily time frame chart, analyzing earnings that came out today after the close, and then move down to a 1 minute to a 5 minute time frame chart for ways to take advantage of the volatility that I think will be present tomorrow. Now, starting off first with the weekly time frame, we have a squeeze that's been building up ever since April of last year. And that has been going on for a long time, and in that entire squeeze, we've had 1, 2, 3, and 4 different signals, all suggesting we expect the squeeze to fire to the bullish side or the upside. Now, in terms of potential targets for that squeeze, if I zoom out, I have our fib retracements drawn from May of 2013 down to March of 2020, and using that retracement, the 50% mark takes us to 27.48 or 27.50 really. That still has yet to be tagged. Now, if we take a look at what this week's candle looks like, we're breaking outside of this downward declining trend line here, this bull flag, where it seems like earnings could be the catalyst that takes us into that 27.48 mark that we've been waiting now for quite some time. Another way that I also see this chart that looks interesting is we've been trading inside of this channel. If I right click, redraw this channel, that channel really for the most part, if we extend this to the left, you can see how ever since we've entered that channel, we've been going to the upside, to the downside, to the upside, to the downside, and most recently now, this past 2 weeks, looks like we're bouncing away from the lower end of this channel, and the upper end of the channel also takes us to 27.48. So all reasons why I think 27.48 is a likely price to be touched. The last mechanism on the weekly time frame chart, if I load in our squeeze signals backtester here, click apply, and we take a look at what the stats have been inside of Mattel off of the squeeze signal, we've had 10 different times that the signal has been present for the entire max duration of this chart. Out of those 10 times, 8 have been winners and only 2 have been losers. Each time the winner has been greater than the loser, average winner 10.75%, average loser negative 6.84%. The one thing that stands out here is the average trade duration. We're way past that. The average trade duration is 18 weeks here. I think we're close to right around 48 or so, almost 50 weeks, 50 bars, which suggests that we're well beyond that average trade duration, but we still have the bias of more winners than losers on our side. So hopefully the weekly time frame chart helps to establish this longer term bias, especially for those of you that are swing traders. Now, if we narrow this down to a daily time frame chart instead, so let me remove that, switch over to the daily time frame chart. Off of the daily time frame chart, we can see we just reported earnings inside of Mattel after the close, and it was a pretty substantial beat, 18 cents actual compared to the estimate of 5 cents. So now that we have earnings data, let's go ahead and load in the Smarter Earnings indicator, and this indicator lets us trade the actual day of earnings after we have that data. It lets us see what the at least tendencies are inside of a particular market. Now in Mattel, this is going back 5 years. It's counting 21 earnings since it's including this most recent one as well, so subtract 1 from there in terms of this data. If we take a look at some interesting tendencies, and before we do that, Mattel right now is trading at 23.80 to 23.90. Our close was 24.17, so if anything, looks like we may open with a slight gap down, at least compared to the close, but nothing too substantial. There's no large gap one way or the other. In terms of that tendency though, our gap down has tended to be filled about 2 times, and one of those times was on a beat. So that's one bullish sign we have in the event that we have a substantial gap down. We expect that gap to get filled, especially given that we beat on the earnings cycle this time around. Now, gap and go is where I think this gets a bit more interesting. We had 9 total gap and goes out of the 20 earnings that it was looking at. 5 of them were bullish, 4 of them were bearish. The average bullish move was much greater than the average bearish move. The average bullish move right around $1.08. $1.08 from where price currently is at would take us to near that 25 to 26 region, depending on where we end up opening. So another bullish sign inside of Mattel, But of course, we don't really have any substantial clues just yet, at least based off of after hours activity, as to where Mattel is. So that's where now, if we shrink this in to a 1-minute time frame chart, that's where I think this becomes a little bit more obvious in ways to try and play this. So this was today's activity. Now if I load in our hourly volatility box models here for stocks, so let me load that in. Using that inside of Mattel, if we see where price action and volatility collide to give us some interesting opportunities. To start the morning here, we had price fall inside of the aggressive volatility box zones, and this is what I'm looking for tomorrow inside of Mattel, using both the aggressive and the conservative boxes. Do we get any kind of volatility sell-offs, even if it's early in the morning, where typically we stay away from it? But given that we have all of this bias inside of Mattel, makes a lot of sense to be bullish and looking for reasons to buy. So any entries near our lower edge of the volatility box clouds, I think are going to be some really nice ways to play this overall longer term bullish bias inside of Mattel. So a way to enter that position. In terms of how to play it, you could either use something like the actual shares, or knowing that again we have this longer term weekly bias here, you might do something like come into the options chain, look at something like September or maybe even October, and look at buying some of these calls if price action were to fall inside of those volatility box zones that we have. So that's the overall idea I have inside of Mattel and the reasons why I have that same bullish bias. Again, to recap, we started with the weekly time frame chart here. Using the weekly time frame chart, we not only see this overall longer uptrend, we're towards the bottom end of this channel. We're bouncing away from that channel. We're also breaking outside of this bull flag. We have 27.48 above, which is a target that seems like it wants to be hit that we haven't hit yet. Coming inside of the daily time frame chart, we still have a squeeze that's building up momentum now. Again, breaking outside of this trend line, looking to play this up move. And the way to pinpoint the exact entry, coming into that 1-minute time frame chart, using both the aggressive and conservative hourly models, and looking for moments like this, where price action falls into our lower volatility box clouds, the place to get long, and that really serves as your entry point. The asset class you use is completely up to you. Shares for really a no headache sort of management for this trade. Or if you're a little bit more ambitious or looking to use leverage, that's where options, but making sure to buy yourself some time, comes into play. Either the 57 or 92 days out options, which are still fairly inexpensive for the most part, at least compared to some other places where volatility is much higher. I hope you found this video to be useful for those of you looking for a trade idea, a chart that looks a little bit less messy compared to I think a lot of other charts that you would currently see right now in the marketplace. Take care everyone, good luck trading, and we'll see you in the next update.